Okay, so I did mine on the Matang mangroves, and unlike Andy's, mine are still here. So first of all, mangroves are a forest of trees and shrubs that live in the intertidal zone of subtropical areas. They also present zonation, so for example, one particular species may be found more predominantly down on the shoreline and far less further back. So these forests do live in very extreme conditions, so for example height, salinity, high tidal ranges, temperate weathers, and anaerobic soils, which basically mean that the soils lack oxygen due to the silt that lays on top of them. They are of high importance ecologically. The strong bark and the shrubs makes mangroves a really good nursery for thousands of species worldwide. So the Matang mangroves. The Matang mangrove is based on the peninsula of Malaysia's largest mangrove and covers 40,537 hectares. It's also one of the most threatened ecosystems globally, with an annual loss of around 35 to 50%. That's just for the Matang mangroves, not other mangroves. So it's important that they have constant assessments to ensure that the protection is there in place. There are more than 240 species of mammals, birds and marine life living on this mangrove. So history of the mangroves. This has a really quite extensive history. Over the past 100 years, the Forestry Department has recognised the importance of this mangrove and therefore has put in a protection. For the past century, they've been primarily managed for charcoal, timber and fishing. And there are 5 large Chinese settlements that fish cockles, which I don't really expect, but there we go. So the global threats, obviously anthropogenic threats are the major one. So this means that obviously as global warming increases, we'll have a increase in sea level change. And with sea level change, mangroves will need to retreat. However, as humans move closer to the coastline, this may mean the mangroves won't be able to retreat and instead they'll just disappear. They're also important, however, it is kind of a worrying issue, that the 2004 tsunami that happened on Boxing Day caused quite a stir with how mangroves work. So everywhere else that didn't present mangroves, they faced massive destruction, so houses were ruined, flooding, lines were down. However, where mangroves were present, it kind of acted as a breakwater and less destruction took place, if any. So for example, one study showed that there was absolutely no uprooted mangroves after the 2004 tsunami in one particular area of that species, I would say. I don't know how to say it. So as I said, with more people moving to the coastal regions and populations set to double within the next 25 years, mangroves are really experiencing anthropogenic changes. So not only does it mean an increase to populations on the coast, but it also means an increase in fertilisers, pollution and deforestation to make room for these people. Mangroves are also considered carbon-rich forests, or otherwise known as blue carbon sinks. So if deforestation does take place on the mangroves, then it's just going to excel global warming further. So the management techniques. As I said before, the Forestry Department did set in a protection in 1906, and this has had a really positive effect on the mangroves. However, it has lost 0.6% of area due to settlements of the fishing companies. However, it has also accredited over this 100-year period 1,498 hectares, so overall the positives outweigh the negatives really. There's also a community-based mangrove management project, which is adopted by government agencies to ensure that locals are doing more in their area to restore mangroves if they're at threat, or to teach people in the local area more about where they live and what's going on. So as a conclusion, mangroves are an extremely important resource. The protection of these forests are vital, and obviously they are in place at the moment. However, with hydrometeorological changes happening all the time, it's probably best that they are reviewed and possibly changed and adapted to suit this particular mangrove. Overall, I think that the mangrove is pretty well managed and continues to be a sustainable forest for this local community and produces quite a high income. And that's it.
Thank you very much. You feel that the legislation they got there is working.
It's working in the fact that it's obviously accredited this land and only had a small percentage of loss. However, if you take into account the loss would have been for the fishing settlements, then the economy would have also grown, so they could maybe put more in to make more. If that makes
Is there any? I mean, is there any particular? Is there any aspect of tourism? Do people go there? Is it just?
It is. The town of Kuala Septang is a ecotourism area. And it does generate a little bit of income, but not a lot. Obviously, not a lot of people know about this place. But it does teach people that visit the area what's going on. It also provides a small income, which allows the community to then replace mangroves that are being lost and introduce new species to the area.
And one of the things with because do you think the fact that it's used as a resource at let's say an acceptable level, I won't use the word sustainable, but at a level where, okay, they're taking some wood, but obviously wood can regrow. Do you think that's something that's helped protect it?
I would say so, because obviously the local community knows what species are flourishing more than others, so obviously with change and time, then they can see which ones are kind of beginning to back out a little bit more, so they'll be able to replace the ones that are stronger in a new environment, so it may be more beneficial.
I don't know if maybe there might be more of this in your report, I don't know, but did you find anything that questions a little bit around, although it looks like a great pristine mangrove, that certain species of mangrove are favoured than others for things like the timber and charcoal, which means that actually it's becoming a bit of a monoculture in terms of they like one type of mangrove.
I know that they have set areas where they will do logging and stuff,
okay.
Obviously for the timber, so obviously they'll be planting and replanting species that they use. I don't know about the rest of the mangroves, I think that's just left to flourish on its own.
Okay, that's right, well it sounds like you're saying. Okay, lovely, thank you very much. Any other questions?